Good evening, everyone. I hope you're as excited as I am because today we're talking about getting ready for tax filing season. So all I can do is put the music on, get on the camera, and chat with you because it is not so much of an exciting topic to discuss, but we need to get ready. So my name is Anna, and I welcome you to the Money Date. It's been a long day. It's been a long week so far, but a little music gets me a little further. So how is everybody? Thanks for hopping on. Now, a Money Date is a special time that we allow in our week to pause and look back at how our finances are doing. Hi, Laura. Good to have you here. So here's your resetting point, okay? Now, Money Dates came out of my own frustrations and struggle because I needed a reset point. I needed to have a conversation with my loved ones about where everything was. And then I decided that I could share that with you because you know no different. Everybody gets so busy and we forget that certain things have to be reminded, have to be reviewed, and have to be checked upon. So there are three things that we look at in terms of what we track from week to week. Now, last weekend, because it was the beginning of the month, I sat down and reviewed all of my finances, right? Paid the bills, make sure everything was on autopilot, right? So that I can later on come in and just check. Hi, Arash, good to have you here. Thanks for watching. So there are three things that I want you to keep track of. If you've been watching this for a while, you're probably starting to have some history and you're starting to see patterns. That's what I want. I want you to start seeing your own patterns because there is a story behind those patterns. Number one is income. And for those of you who are business owners or work for yourself, income is very important. Laura, I think you can relate to that. Number two, where has your spending been? For all of us, where have we spent our money? Do we have a system in place to keep track of that? And of course, the last piece, but not the least, is our savings goal, right? Do we have more than one savings goal in place? And are we tracking with that? Because if you can't configure your income and your expenses, how are you going to be able to save? How are you going to be able to get to where you're going? So I know that if you could have those data points, start a little journal that you can record those. I use mint.com. It's my sort of portal and dashboard when I can log in on my phone and pull all of that information and have that available just, at the top of my finger. Okay? So that's number one. This is why I want you to check in with yourself. Find that time and just check in and see what's going on. Now, the other pieces of what we cover here on the Money Dates actually relate to learning something new. Now, before I get into the fun topic that I've got on my books today, which is organizing for filing our tax returns, we are right in the midst of the tax season. I do not do taxes because that's not my specialty. I'm not a tax preparer or a CPA. I'm a financial planner. So my idea and my suggestions are planning, okay? Getting everything organized and ready. I have to work on that for myself this weekend. So I thought it would be prudent to discuss with you. Now, one thing I found that I could be procrastinating and dragging out getting taxes done, especially when I know that I have to pay the tax bill, right? So what I did actually is I scheduled a date on the calendar and said, because it has to be on the weekend, other days aren't available, right? On the weekend, you can find all kinds of fun things to do aside from getting your taxes done. So I have a dedicated time this weekend to work on that. So that's how I approach it because then I can commit to getting it done. Otherwise, I'll be filing for extensions, which is okay too. But if you can get it done, get it out of the way, that's the goal. All right, so what I want to cover with you are some data points and some of the information pieces that you should be getting organized together so that whether you're preparing your taxes by yourself or you have a CPA or you have a tax preparer, that you can actually turn this information to them, okay? So I'm gonna go through some points. So if you're ready, start taking notes. You know, the bottom line is that IRS, all they want to know is how much income did you make, right? So that you can properly report to them, so that they can turn around and get their fair share of taxes. It may not seem so fair, right, when you have to write a check above and beyond what you already paid, but that's all they're really after. They're not after you for any other reason. So if you can make sure and streamline that process, then that should be pretty seamless, okay? So keep that in mind, right? Here are the things that at the very least, and I see this a lot in terms of, I have colleagues who are tax preparers, CPAs, and enrolled agents, sort of commenting and saying, all right, well, you know, clients submit their data, but it's a lot of times it's missing these various data pieces. So at the very minimal, organize your identifying information, things like addresses, social security numbers. So if you have dependents, make a list, right? If it's your kids or your maybe elderly parents. Hi, Lori. Good to have you here. If it's those people, have all of that information compiled. That way, when you sit down and do it yourself, or you turn that information to somebody who does it for you, they have it all together, right? Because again, you want to make sure, and a lot of times the tax preparers will give you a list of things to go through and say, all right, I've got this, check off, I've got that. So that's one of the things that's frequently overlooked. All right, you've got that out of the way, very simple things. Start collecting documents that are going to prove the income that you've made, okay? So number one, at the very least, if you work for someone else, you should be getting a W-2, okay? As of right now, everybody should have gotten their W-2s from their employers. So if you don't have one, that's a red flag. Number two, 1099s, okay? So if you had side hustle jobs, you're driving for Uber or contracting or consulting or whatever kind of income that you've got, $600 or more, you have to have a 1099. That person or that entity or that organization who paid you are supposed to issue you this form. It's called 1099, because what happens is one copy of that 1099 goes to the IRS and then one copy goes to you, so that when you file your tax return, when IRS gets it, they can actually match it up to what's on their record. All right, so you need to be tracking those things. Now, for those of you who are self-employed or have their own businesses, you got to be tracking your expenses, right? Because there are opportunities for you to minimize the taxes. Hi, Lisa. Good to have you here. So, all kinds of business-related expenses, miles driven. Have you bought any new equipment? Any supplies? Have you paid any utilities? Those are some of the questions that you need to be asking yourself as you're gathering this data, okay? All right, number three, let's look into investment side of things. Investment accounts, savings accounts, what else do you have going on that potentially has given you income? Okay, so let's think about things like, I have a savings account, right? Online savings account. I should be getting a special form that's called, again, 1099, but it has three different letters at the top of it. It says interest, INT. So that form reports how much interest my savings account generated. If I have a brokerage account, right, that grew in value, or perhaps I sold something at a profit, that particular account, and normally, most of the times, financial institutions, right, Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity, T. Rowe Price, wherever you have your accounts, should be issuing those forms to you, okay? So kind of run a list in your head and say, I've got these accounts, this is all the money that I have. Do I have enough documentation that proves interest and dividends that I received, capital gains if there were during 2017? You do not need to worry about retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, simple IRAs, SEP IRAs, those kinds of accounts, because unless you took distributions from those, then there should be specific forms. 1099s would be one of them. If not, there's nothing to report. Those accounts are sitting, the money is growing tax deferred. We don't need to worry about those accounts yet for income purposes, okay? Now, here is a laundry list of qualifying questions to make sure that you've actually gathered some of this additional data, okay? So I've got about maybe 7 or 8 of them. Do you own a home? If you own a home, do you have a mortgage on the house, right? So that we can figure out how much interest you're going to be able to deduct. If you own a home, you probably pay real estate taxes. So how much real estate tax have you paid in 2017? Some of you prepaid your real estate taxes, right? At the end of last year, because our tax code is changing and we have a new tax reform in the works for 2018. So for some of you, it was probably an advantageous thing to do. So state and local taxes, right? 2017 is the last year for some of us. For example, California residents, we pay high income state tax. So it's going to be the last year that we can actually deduct it. So where's all that information is compiled? Is it on your W-2 income statement? Is it on some other way? Have you actually paid the taxes? Have you made estimated quarterly payments to show that? Okay, so think about that. Personal property taxes. Some states, for example, Virginia, have that kind of tax, and it's usually on personal property. An example of a personal property could be a car. So there should be a form that you have to complete with that. Hi, Anna. Good to have you here. Did you make any donations in 2017? Did you donate more than $250 that you need to have a receipt for? Okay. How about volunteering time? Some of us don't think about that, but let me give you an example. If you've volunteered your time somewhere and you actually have to drive, or if there were any other related expenses to this activity, can you prove that you spent money, right? Because you can't really deduct your time. There's no way to quantify that. But if you had any expenses associated with that, how can you show that so that we can use this as one of the items to be able to reduce your taxable income? Okay. Now, miles driven for these kinds of activities are 14 cents a mile. So think about that, right? Have you done anything good for the greater society so that now there's opportunity for you to benefit just a little bit? Do you have any medical expenses? Has anything been going on in 2017 where you had to come up with funds beyond what your health insurance covers, out-of-pocket expenses deductible? There's a certain percentage that you are allowed to deduct above your adjusted gross income, right? Your AGI. So I would like to make recommendations for you to compile a list, and then you can figure out how much more or how much of that, if there is a list of medical expenses that you'll be able to deduct. So at the very minimal right now, just gather that data. Not everything will be deductible, but just gather that data. Student loan interests. Are you like one of my clients who have gigantic student loans on which you're paying interest? So there is income limitation for that, but again, I want you to gather the data right now. Don't worry about whether it's applicable to you or not. Just run those questions in your mind. Investment management fees is my last category. So do you have a professional investment manager to whom you're paying investment management fees? Now, or financial planning fees or financial advisory fees. Are you paying your CPA to prepare or tax preparer to prepare your returns? Investment management fees are the last year, it's 2017, for which you can deduct. So gather those up, and they cannot be paid out of your retirement account. So there's that one little caveat there. I think this is a pretty good list of things for you to compile. So here's one tip that I found to be useful throughout the year. Now, right now, what I plan to do is kind of gather all of this data and push it off all to my accountant. Now, throughout the year, I keep a manila folder, right? And I just write taxes 2018, and any kind of tax-related documents, I just kind of stick in there. Okay, I don't know if it's going to be applicable or not, and it's just easier because then it's all in one spot. I don't have to worry about it. But I found that over the years to be useful, because then also you've got to keep those documents as a record along with your tax return, right? And lately I found that all of our tax returns are just electronically available, right? Because that's what that's how we file them. So I don't end up having to print the returns, right? But at least I have a folder that's marked with this specific tax year, and I've got to keep those things for a good 7 years. So start using that kind of system, right? Maybe you scan your receipts and your documents and you have an electronic folder. I probably should think about doing that because I can do that pretty quick on my phone. All right. Now, there's probably going to be more stuff that you need to think about in terms of organizational aspect, right? And I talked about this earlier in the week, that a question that most of you wonder is, should I file my own return? Should I go out and seek help? Look at the complexity, right? If it feels overwhelming beyond what you can understand and beyond what TurboTax could do, or Tax Act, or one of those programs that actually can walk you through, then you probably are a good candidate for looking at finding someone who can actually help you, okay? If you need some referrals for good professional preparation tax return, please let me know. I'll do my best to find you someone, but it's been, just because we're so close to April 15th deadline, a lot of CPAs are quite busy, so let me know. Now, the only thing is left to do is for you to actually do the work. Now, even though, right, you may not be able to file your tax return on time, still getting this organized, still getting all of this information to your person who's going to help you with that. If you have to file for an extension, at least you're going to get it in the pipeline. So don't just put your head in the sand. I had a client earlier today who hasn't filed her taxes for 3 years, okay? So she doesn't want to face it. She knows she's going to owe balances for every year, but not filing, not getting all of this organized. So I hope that when she left after a meeting, that was one of the things that she needs to work on first, is getting all of that stuff in order. We'll face the reality as it works, right, as it comes, whatever that is, but get over that hurdle in terms of organizational aspect. It's going to feel pretty good, I promise you. Okay? All right. And the last thing I wanted to share with you, and for those of you watching live, you guys, thanks so much. Say something in the chat, that way I know you actually are here and visited with me. If you found this information useful, please share it out. Money wins. I always want to stop and reflect. I do. I keep a gratitude journal. I share this with you all the time. I write my gratitudes every evening before going to bed. But once a week, I challenge you to think about something that's been awesome, fantastic, great, phenomenal, something that you're particularly excited or proud of over the last 7 days. I think that anything we do in life is going to tie into our finances, right? Because that's just how everything is closely related. But if you don't want to think about it that way, don't. At least give yourself an opportunity to pause and reflect on what's happening, what's good, and what's great. Now, here's what's been my money win for the week. I started, so all last week, Yuri and I decided that we're going to be on a new wake-up schedule. It's, when you decide on these kinds of activities, it feels really excited, right? But when the time comes to actually implement, that's where the rubber hits the road. So we've been waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning all last week and first, the 3 days this week. It's tough. I'm not going to lie about it. Yuri has still an issue with me going to bed on time, and I try to manage that. So, it's going to take time. I've been feeling pretty amazing because I allow myself, the reason for waking up, our old time used to be 5:30. So we said, all right, we're going to give ourselves an extra 30 minutes in the morning so that we can write our goals, right? So that we can take the time to plan the day and then maybe perhaps do some training. So for example, I'm taking some of the sales courses. So I do about 25 minutes of watching some videos online, taking notes. It's been, by the time, so it is challenging at 5 o'clock. We wake up, we do all of this, and then we go to the gym from 6 to 7. But I tell you, when we come back from the gym, first of all, the exercise alone is already a fire and a great start to a day. But then thinking back, oh my gosh, we've accomplished so much. It's been energetic. It's been phenomenal. It's been transformational. So by the time I get to work around 9 o'clock, I feel like I've accomplished a mountain, right? I climbed over a mountain with just those kinds of activities. So I can't emphasize enough. I know some of you are not early risers. I am. I have the most energy in the morning. So that's where I'm applying it. And it's been great. So I challenge you to think about one good thing and share it with me that's been awesome for you. I know there's something. It has to be. It does. Life works like that. You need to just start recognizing it. Before I close, I want to share a quote with you. Think about the topic that we discussed today. Let me know what questions you have around organizational aspect of filing your taxes. But here it is. The avoidance of taxes is the only intellectual pursuit that carries any reward. So think about, hi Jim, good to have you here. So think about what can you do? And I think the success to this, tax dilemma and sort of winning the tax game and being on the top of it is the planning piece. And that's what I'm advising for you to do. Thanks for joining me. I will see you guys next week and have a fantastic weekend.